Introductory language for virtual public meeting chairs as of February 3rd, 2021. Committee Commission Chair language. Pursuant to recently adopted amendments to the Illinois Open Meetings Act included in Public Act 101-0640, public bodies may, in certain circumstances, hold entirely virtual public meetings without a quorum physically present in any one location. On March 17, 2020, Village President Lawrence R. Levine issued a declaration of emergency pursuant to the authority granted by the Village Code, the Illinois Municipal Code, and the Illinois Emergency Management Agency Act to address the health threat posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. On June 15, 2020, President Levine executed a written determination that given the ongoing emergency associated with the COVID-19 pandemic, in-person meetings of the Board of Trustees are not practical or prudent. On January 8, 2021, Governor Pritzker issued his most recent disaster proclamation and executive order 2021-01 that declared in-person attendance at public meetings of more than 10 people at the regular public meeting location to be infeasible in accordance the Open Meetings Act as amended by Public Act 101-0640. In accordance with the governor's disaster proclamation, Village President Levine's declaration of emergency, and President Levine's determination regarding meetings of the Board of Trustees, Village President Levine has also determined that in-person meetings of the Community Relations Forum are not practical or prudent at this time and until further notice. Accordingly, this meeting of the Community Relations Forum is being conducted virtually with members participating through the Zoom webinar platform. Assistant Village Manager Sharon Tanner is in the conference room as required by the Open Meetings Act. Well, I would like to call the meeting to order. May I please have a roll call?
Certainly. Chairperson Dipty Clark.
Here.
Member Margot Flanagan.
Here.
Member Reverend Dwayne Gary.
Here.
Member Anise Moses.
Here.
Member Amy Mizell. Member Gary Rubin.
Here.
Member Hillary Scott. Member Maureen Valvasori.
Here.
Member Bob Young.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Great. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is consideration of the meeting minutes from February 17th. Is there a motion to approve?
Excuse me, I would just ask that that motion include correction of a Scrivener's error. My tally of the ayes in the meeting minutes did not reflect everyone, and my sincere apologies for that.
Dwayne Gary so moved with the necessary corrections.
Second. All right, all those in favor. Oh, wait, hang on, I got to do a roll call vote.
May I have a roll call vote?
Thanks. Chairperson Dipty Clark.
Yes.
Member Margot Flanagan.
Yes.
Member Reverend Dwayne Gary.
Yes.
Member Anise Moses.
Yes.
Member myself, she's absent. Member Gary Rubin.
Yes.
Member Hillary Scott.
Yes.
Member Maureen Valvasori.
Yes.
And Member Bob Young.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you. At this time in the meeting, is there a member of the public who may want to comment on something that is not on the agenda? I will ask Sharon to read any public comments that were submitted prior to the meeting. And after that, I will ask if any members of the public would like to comment on something that is not on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment about something that is listed on the agenda, then you please hold that comment until that time. If a member of the public would like to make a comment now on something that is not on the agenda, please raise the raise hand button on your computer or press *9 if you're joining by phone. The Village's public comment rules limit comments to 3 minutes.
There were no public comments submitted and there are no hands raised for comments.
Okay, great. Thank you. I wanted to start by saying that I have a hard stop in an hour. I have a lot of upgrades, critical upgrades going in, and so I have to be on a call for I don't know how many hours after. So we will try to get through our meeting in an hour. We've tried to break it up as much as possible to this agenda. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Can I share my screen, Sharon, if that's okay with you? I just want to show. Okay, so here is the agenda that we have put together quickly to go through tonight's meeting. As you can see, we do have a lot to cover. And if we're not able to cover everything, that's okay, but we try to put as much as possible that we can cover. And, you know, if we need more time, we can certainly take it to the next meeting. Let's just start off by saying Happy Women's Day to all the wonderful women. Happy Women's Month. Sorry, not the day yet, but month. March is Women's Month. And so I just want to shout out to all the fantastic women I work with on this forum and in my life. They're strong, powerful, and there's so much I've learned from them. So I just wanted to recognize all the women here today. Yay, we can give each other a big hand. Let's move into our updates on the forum initiatives so that we just know what each of our initiatives are doing. Let's start with getting the pulse of Glencoe.
Is that the getting to know the heart of Glencoe?
That's next.
Oh, okay.
I think you're talking about myself and Margot and Amy.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that we have an update for tonight, so we
Okay,
can just move along.
that's fine. Let's move on to the next one. Is there an update from Get to Know the Heart of Glencoe?
Oh, sorry, hold on. Didn't mean to have my video off. We're just, I'm working on a draft letter for people that we have emails for. And Gary's going to go and talk to the postmaster people and the heads of the different departments or whatever, where we're going to be interviewing people that work here. And that's pretty much where we're at.
Okay, that's great. Any questions for Anise on that from anyone? Okay, and then the next one is our town hall series. I don't know, Bob or Reverend Gary, do you guys want to provide an update?
Reverend Gary?
We have identified a few potential panelists that we are in the midst of calling to confirm them, looking to do our first panel series in the month of April. And that's where we are. We are formalizing our thoughts upon questions that we want to identify. I want each one to answer and figure out how we will do breakout rooms. So that's where we are at this time. Did I cover everything, everybody?
I'm sorry, what?
I was wondering, did I cover everything?
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah. We're moving to the point where we know the month we want to do this in, and we have our initial list of panelists that we want to approach. So stay tuned for more information. So thank you, Reverend Gary, for that. Any questions for Reverend Gary? All right. Moving on. I think we took less than 10 minutes on that. That was fantastic. We all had the Eco District presentation from Barney Gallagher and his team from the Sustainability Task Force in our last meeting. And I just wanted to take some time to do a debrief and a follow-up and see if there were any next steps we wanted to identify or any opportunities that we may have to partner with them. Also wanted to see if in this group anybody would be interested to kind of be a liaison to that particular group. So I just wanted to take the time to bring up if anybody has any comments from what we talked about, just do a quick debrief.
I'll give it a shot. I did have a chance to look over their protocol thing that that Sharon sent us, and so I just want to make sure I'm understanding, I guess, is what I'm doing. So it looks, first of all, their presentation was phenomenal. It was so good. And it was so well organized, and it made me feel better to know that there was one or two people on that committee that I think maybe do this professionally. So I felt a little bit better because my work is not quite up to their par. But what I'm understanding is part of a sustainability plan includes the community that's including or trying to enable this plan to be equitable. And so to me, it's just, it's taking me a little while to make the leap from my mind. Sustainability means, environmental sustainability and being green and all that kind of stuff. But it seemed to me like this plan also includes making the community more welcoming and more equitable to a more diverse community. So it's my understanding that what they came to us for was for us to participate in that small portion of their whole big plan, which is so awesome. And I guess what I took some notes and I'm like, I think this is where we're supposed to be going with this. And if that is the case, then I think in some ways it would call for us to redirect some of our work that we're doing here. Because what they seem to be talking about and use the word a few times is, looking at our community's policies. And, some of the things I tried to look at their presentation, not the presentation, but the protocol from the company that does that attachment that Sharon sent us, and look at where equity falls into that plan. Where would we be able to help, I guess, is what I was looking at. And, I found things more aligned with things like civic engagement, are our policies and our regulations equitable? Are they applied equitably? The whole affordable and diverse housing question. I guess it was mentioned in their presentation, are the employment policies of our community, the community that the village has control over. I mean, we can't tell foodstuffs what to do. We can suggest and we can encourage, but we can't tell them what to do. But internally, are our policies equitable? Is our community accessible to people with disabilities? And so when I looked at their program, I'm like, oh, that's a lot. And are we even qualified or am I even qualified to assist on that level? And so those were the thoughts I had when I was looking at it. And I hope that probably didn't make any sense. It didn't totally make sense to me. So that's what I was thinking about.
Anyone else have a different view?
Well, one of the things that I brought up was bridging communities, and that was something I sort of threw out there, and they said they would talk about it. The idea of bridging our North Shore community with a city garden project. I do a lot of work in Englewood. They are committed to beautification projects in Englewood. And I love the idea of Glencoe partnering with Englewood. And I see ways to sort of include schools, which may be outside of what they're kind of looking at, but the idea of doing seed trades, that the different classrooms grow seeds in cups in Englewood and in Glencoe, and then we swap the seeds and they get planted in one another's gardens. And there's some way to like have a shared experience through a Zoom classroom or a shared blog area or whatever. I like the idea of bridge building. I think I know that people in Englewood are committed to beautification and they want things to be better environmentally. I know that they've been planting in their community gardens, they've been planting sunflowers to absorb the lead, which is in the soil. They have a really bad lead problem. So I like the idea of that. I don't know if that's like way outside of sort of what they were thinking about, but when I threw it out there, they didn't run away and turn off their video screens. So I think that, it's something that they might be amenable to. And that is something that I would be willing to get involved in actively. So.
And Hillary, you had your hand up a little while ago.
I did. My response was more, I want to respond to Margot, but I don't want to redirect away from Anise. I would agree with your assessment that they did not turn their screens off and run away, Anise. And I can certainly see both the linkage between what you suggested, and then I think Bob had Sharon send us an obituary from a teacher at New Trier. I could be muddling up my different things in life, but there was a teacher at New Trier who recently passed away, who had done, who had classes where they did kind of like city, not exploring, but like community building and bridging and mixing of communities in intentional ways within a classroom setting. I know that there's probably something like that still at New Trier. There are also organizations in Chicago. None of the names are coming to my head right off the top of my head, but I could certainly find out the name of organizations that do that quite purposefully. So, I can certainly see where Anise is headed with that. But going back to Margot, I agree with your assessment that that their eco-district presentation is much more encompassing than I had anticipated going into the meeting. And it did sort of leave me questioning in a good way, in much the same way that I did after our meeting with the trustees. Do we need to sort of rejigger a little bit? I know that we all have an appetite for this work, but I want to be reasonable in terms of what we commit to. And it seems to me if the village were to go down this road with this partnership, this format, we would have a way to do a lot of the things that I think that some of us want to do around policy, looking at policy and equity and all of that, more sort of substantive changes rather than, I don't want to say rather than, in addition to, the more sort of soft stuff that I also think is important, like community building through, the getting to know the heart of Glencoe and the community forum, but not the forum, the panel, forgive me. But I think it's a lot. I think what the village is sort of, the board is steering us towards, and then this eco district thing is steering us towards is significant in terms of scope, and could be really good. But I just thought that we should have a conversation then around where that puts us with our current work.
That's a good way of putting it, because increasing scope, like you said. However, my take from that presentation was that there's nothing formally formalized. Nothing has been put out there to present. They're looking at all the pieces and they wanted to involve us, which I thought was really great because equity was so important on that list. Now, to your point and Margot's point, there were policies they were talking about. I think there was also something to do with affordable housing on that list and things that we have not addressed as a forum. We have not talked about it. I don't know if it is within our realm to even bring it up, how much we can even talk about it, what we can even do to change it. So my take with this would be that we are willing to partner, we're willing to support, and we're there if they would like our help with things. However, we obviously are not the decision makers, and we're not the knowledge base, if you may, for the policies that they were talking about. But we are on our way to making Glencoe a welcoming community. We have, we have things we're defining. That's our goal. And so we are on our way to do that. So I still do not want to completely sideline it to say like we're not doing any of that. It kind of goes hand in hand. And I really want to see how they come out of, like, what they come up with, like what comes out of their discussions. And if they need us, we're here. So I just wanted to see if we wanted to identify a couple of us as their go-to people from the forum, and maybe just liaise with them to know what's going on. They can reach out, we can reach out, just kind of understanding where they are with their plan. Any other comments on that? So we don't have to decide right now, who would be interested in liaising. But if you do have any ideas, you feel like you might be interested, reach out to me, and we'll move forward. I can introduce you to Barney so that he's aware that we would be the people moving forward through the forum, and he can contact us. All right. So that moving on, I wanted to touch on our public comments that we received after the village board meeting. There were several letters that Sharon had shared, long emails that came, which I really was very happy to see, because we have our meetings and we rarely ever get such public comments. So it was really nice to see so much come out. I took away 3 very major things out of that. I took away, questions regarding what the LGBTQ community's involvement is and how we can involve them more inclusively. The second thing that I read more was having some sort of student participation in our forum, or how do we work with students? And the third was, what type of diversity are we looking at on our forum? So those are the 3 that, really stood out. Motion detected at the front door. Sorry, I was trying to mute on time and I couldn't. We have, let's go to the first one, the topic. Family Services of Glencoe is actually a really good resource, because they are so well-rounded with all the various people that they work with. And I know Hillary and I talked a little bit about this, but I was wondering if we could have someone from Family Services of Glencoe to come to one of our meetings, the second half of the month meetings, to present and tell us how they are dealing with the different various groups, specifically maybe the LGBTQ community, what it is that we can do in our forum, how do we help out, how do we take that forward? So that was kind of one of the ideas. And I know there were some emails back and forth, and we talked about maybe approaching the parents of some of these, or approaching the people who wrote those letters in the public comments, who specifically have mentioned that they have a child who may be a transgender or LGBTQ from that community, that we could maybe reach out to and see if we could engage with them to understand what they see this forum helping the community. So those were a couple of ideas that I know that have come across ahead of time. Does anybody want to share anything else?
I guess I would just break the silence. I don't know if I agree with what you said about the involvement and the comments, and I think it's a good recap. I just wonder, they were talking about a broader, let's have the rainbow flag, let's have the village look to even people just driving through, that we support a variety of, if you will, causes or whatever the right word would be. That's certainly relatively easy to do. I don't know if it would be good to know, is there then something more that could be involved in through the schools that would give the support to some of the children, that could use it. It sounded like in more detail, they had that point too. So I don't know, maybe somebody else who has kids in the school system still has something they could add about that.
If we do want to go with that route of showing our support and having, a flag in the village, we could certainly propose that to the board and see if they want to take it forward. I don't know what the policies are for the village to, do that. I mean, I have no idea, but it could be, if that's something that would be a way of showing we are welcoming and we are welcoming to everyone, then we could certainly have that as a proposal to the village, to the board. Our man Gary Rubin is here. Gary, any thoughts on that?
No, I think the forum ought to that along with all the other things we've been talking about over these meetings. I think, including our comments on what the current ordinance is and how that gets revised, updated, modernized. I think it's all completely fair game, and then we'll see where the board wants to take it.
Well, I guess the question that I have is, and I brought it up when we all met, was, for me, flying a flag, for the month of, Gay Pride Month is one thing. Having a pride flag up and just leaving it up is another thing. And I don't know how everybody here feels about those two different options. My vote would be that if you support something, you support something year round. It's not a month. So I don't know how people here feel. So I don't know what that proposal would look like.
I'm in agreement with Anise on this, of supporting the different groups that we have within our village. We have people who are Irish. We got other ethnicities that celebrate their particular month. And if we're going to be that beloved community, then I think we need to own up as the forum and make recommendations and considerations to the board to consider us making those needle movements towards that. So I'm in agreement to Anise's suggestion. I don't know if it's the right time at this point, but I want to further make the statement that our forum needs to be diverse. And I do not know everybody's sexuality on this group, but maybe if there is one who is listening from the LGBTQIA community that is interested in being part of the forum, that they need to follow the process and fill out the application to be considered. And I think this will help us become more DEI.
You know what, I agree with that, and I had another idea that maybe could become protocol for us. I felt that the people that sent in their comments were so thoughtful and so intentional, and I feel like a great way to build bridges through the community is to thank them Like, I'd be happy to write them a handwritten thank you note, something as simple as that. Like, we really appreciate your showing up. We really appreciate your comments. It only helps us grow as a forum, right? But what a great way to build a bridge. I mean, how often do you receive a handwritten note anymore? I know when I do, I'm really moved by that, that someone took the time to do it. So I think that's a really simple way to build bridges. And I was also thinking that so many of those people that sent comments, like what Reverend Gary was saying, wow, wouldn't they be fabulous new forum members? We do have an opening. And they brought a lot of wisdom that evening. So I think, maybe that's something that could be mentioned in the note. Think of joining us. We need you. And I'd be very happy to take that on if we felt that that was appropriate. I checked with Sharon. I don't think there's any rule or law or ordinance, but I think it might be a nice way to extend ourselves.
Yep, I agree.
I completely
That would
agree.
be a lovely idea.
I think
I
so.
agree.
too.
For the benefit of the group, what I shared with Maureen is that there's certainly nothing that prohibits the forum from doing that if that's what you'd like to do. The only logistical challenge might be if somebody makes a verbal comment at a meeting, we don't necessarily have their contact information, but that's not insurmountable.
You're right.
I mean, it's a really good idea. And no, I don't think there is any opposition to being nice, And I would like to even take it a step further. Like, if they want to join the forum, of course, that's the first thing we'd put out there. But also, maybe they can partner with us. They can be our go-to. We want to work with a certain group. We want to work with high schoolers, or we want to work with the LGBTQ, or we want to work with certain groups, and they could help us, and they can kind of be like our partners. And as we do various different initiatives and different programs in the village, they can actually be our very close partners. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Can I just add, not only, we need to also think about our young adults. Where's their representation on this forum? How can we get one or two to be part of this forum without making them an adjunct or a subcommittee type of group, but also have voice and power within this forum? And also to Maureen's idea of writing a thank you, a follow-up letter. I know it was brought up in the Board of Trustees meeting. To me, it doesn't matter if it comes from the Board of Trustees or from the forum. I think we need to make a decision today to make that happen, depending on, doesn't matter who writes it, that we need to do something.
Yeah, totally.
I don't think anybody has opposed it, so.
I don't know if is that a voting type of thing to make it concrete? I don't know. So I'm just kind of asking.
Well, we usually don't vote, but it looks like everybody's kind of nodding. If I see their faces, like I don't see anybody going, oh no, I see like nods. So I'm thinking that's a good way to go ahead. And by no means Maureen is stuck with this by herself. So Maureen, feel free to work with others on the forum, whoever you're comfortable. If you guys want to divvy it up and send those, that's fine too.
Sure. You know what? Maybe Sharon, I could get with you. I printed out the comments, and obviously their names, but there isn't anything else. So maybe you and I can talk about how to contact those who spoke.
Sure, be happy to.
Great.
I think the majority of them, if not all of them, are from that heroes group.
Okay.
And I'm on their email list, and I'm in like a book club with several of them. So I was sort of on the email chain where they were saying there's going to be this meeting. Let's make comments. We want to give our feedback. So I think I know who they are, but I can connect you. I think it's a great idea, Maureen. And I did have a question. Are we limited number-wise to 9 people? Is that like the number that the forum stays at, or does it not? Like, how does it work?
It's a matter of ordinance, but if we had more interest, I think the board, I'm guessing, would be willing to expand it if people wanted to join. On the other hand, at some point it gets unwieldy in terms of getting that many people to get to a meeting twice a month, that kind of thing. So it's a balance of a lot of people because there's a lot to do, and the more diverse group you have, the better, to Reverend Gary's and others' point, versus, can you imagine if we had 25 of us?
Well, going back to the involving young people question, like, and Reverend Gary, I think, kind of posed it, is, how do we do that? Like, are we looking to tap into kids that are involved civically in the Glencoe community that we can pinpoint through like New Trier or the other high schools, around that are Glencoe residents? Because I mean, do they have to be Glencoe residents, I'm assuming?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, anyone who serves on the forum does need to be a Glencoe resident. There's
Okay.
not a minimum age requirement, so students who are under 18 certainly could apply to participate, just as anyone who's over 18 could apply to participate.
Well, so then my question is, are we wanting to market to, I have 2 kids in the high school. I don't know if other people have kids in the high school. I'm not wanting my children, don't worry. But I'm just saying, are we looking to have a conversation, somehow through clubs or, that kind of thing? How are we, or are we wanting to reach out to young people? And then what are our expectations? What are we saying to them? We want you to attend 2 meetings a month, and we want you to participate in giving feedback around these particular issues. This is what our jam is, and we hope you'll join us. Or are we saying, we'd like you to join and attend 1 meeting a month and sort of talk with us about what's going on in your community and what are some concerns and how are we? I mean, I love the idea of working with young people. My skill set and my excitement is working with teenagers. That's what I've always done. So I love that idea, but I'm wondering, how that would look and feel and kind of happen.
Why wouldn't they be, if they were coming on as a member, why wouldn't they be the same expectations as anybody else? I don't see a difference, but I agree. It's like, I'd love to have it. And my thought was just, rather than just kind of throw something out on a bulletin board somewhere, rather maybe talk to a dean of students or somebody who knows, thoughtful people who are kind of have spoken up and have a really good, maybe broad perspective, maybe bring a particular angle, but not only that angle, because like we all wear several hats, right? And so my thought would be, I think it would be awesome to get the age diversity and somebody who represents some more of the issues we're trying to get at. But I would just hope that they would, if they came on as opposed to an adjunct or something, that they would just be like all the rest of us, make as many meetings as you can and get involved, and contribute as much as you can.
One of the suggestions I might have is, we had, it doesn't have to be students, but we had a young group of chalkers that Bob had been in touch with. They in fact even came and attended our meeting. And that might be a group to reach out to see if they have recommendations for other kind of youngsters who may be interested in doing this type of work and being involved with the forum, because they were Glencoe residents. That we already know they were because they came on our one of our meetings and spoke about the work that they were doing.
Do any of you read the New Trier student newspaper? Over the years I have, and the paper is really quite articulate on civil rights issues, discrimination at the school, incidents of discrimination. I would, urge us to reach out to someone on the newspaper because I think they've demonstrated their interest. They're articulate. And I would think they might be eager to participate. My guess is that perhaps there's a Glencoe resident who's working on the school newspaper, but that's where I would go. And if it doesn't have to be a Glencoe resident, you know, we could go to the editor and ask, I believe it's a woman, a girl, if she might be interested. It's a very well run newspaper. They're very bright, very articulate.
It does need to be a Glencoe resident. That is the
Okay.
one criteria.
Well, if, you know, I could check into it and see if there's a Glencoe resident on the newspaper staff. Would that be okay?
I'm just going to break in because the hand raising thing isn't working. So Bob, I think that's a good idea, but I also think there's two other things I just want to put before us. One, and I don't know if Sharon can speak to this, there is precedent for this because the community, the group that came before us, my gosh, what's wrong with me? The Eco Task Force people.
Sustainability Task Force.
Thank you. They at least at one time had a sort of young member of the community in their midst, and they did that. They coordinated that through District 35 with Catherine Wang. She sent out a district-wide email. To me, that feels a little bit more, I guess the word I want to use is even-handed than sort of targeting a particular group and saying like, oh, well, you know, I don't know, that piece makes me a little bit uncomfortable as much as I can appreciate that. I would love to bring on some of the young chalkers. I feel like you want to put it out in a more democratic way to the community. And so there's certainly that piece that we can use from the other group in terms of how they brought in a student, but also to piggyback on Bob's comment, there's a whole civics track at New Trier. So I think that you're on the right path with the newspaper. I also read it. I think it's really striking to me how some of the young people in our community have the views that articulate the views that they have as well as they do given their age. But there's also, in addition to that, this civics track, and some of the faculty at New Trier is very actively engaged in these kinds of discussions. And that would be another sort of outlet for us if we wanted to look for participants. But I want to be really careful about how we look for them. I don't want to just like select one or two people and reach out to them. I think it needs to be a more democratic process than that.
If I could just maybe chime in to Hillary's point, you mentioned a couple of things I was going to offer as suggestions. First of which is certainly having a kind of blanket announcement that's out to the community, so anyone who's interested may hear of it. Any students, particularly if we advertise it as a student role. Second is anytime we're trying to contact students, I would always suggest that we go through the school. Amy suggested a dean of students, and Hillary, you mentioned maybe some faculty who might teach in certain areas. I would suggest starting there, or you'd mentioned Dr. Wang. I would suggest starting with faculty at the schools and asking them to share an announcement with students rather than us contacting students directly. First of all, they've got a better handle on who might be an interested individual, and that's probably a more typical communication channel with students is interacting with their teachers. Certainly we could send it to our houses of worship and ask them to share information with, do they have student groups or youth groups? But again, we're kind of going, I would suggest that we always go through the normal communication channels when we're interacting with students, particularly those who are minors.
Makes sense.
But when you say, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Anise.
No, I was just going to say, when you say Dr. Wang, I mean, those are young kids. Those are like 8th grade and under. Are we targeting that young of a kid, or are we talking about high school age kids?
I think that would be up to the forum to think through, and whether you take the approach of kind of casting a wide net, or whether the group would rather start with maybe high school age students, or even frankly, college students. That's for the forum to think through and to consider. Again, my suggestion is simply that we go through the schools or houses of worship so that we're funneling communication through those organizations.
Well, okay. Well, my vote would be for like high school and up, but high school would be my vote. I think that the prospect, if in terms of what Amy is suggesting, for like an 8th grade or under to sit through 2 1-hour meetings of us talking once a month or twice a month is probably untenable. I think that would probably be unpleasant for them.
Totally agree. I actually just meant, I think there's got to be a way through the district to zero in on Glencoe only students. But yeah, I agree. I'm picturing my middle schoolers trying to sit through this, and it wouldn't be pretty.
Yeah, and I'd like to reiterate, I think that I'm an active member of the Glencoe Clergy Association along with Reverend Gary, and I know in my work as director of outreach, I'm approached by high school students all the time looking for projects. There's most certainly a protocol when dealing with minors, but I find that the students that approach me are really invested and excited. And I think that going through the Clergy Association might be another great way to vet students that might be, interested in joining us.
How about contacting the teacher advisor for the new Trier student newspaper? That would speak to Sharon's point. Because they do a good job.
I think that generally, anytime we're talking with school administration over students directly, that's preferable. I think to Amy's point, maybe a good point of contact might be administrative point of contact in a school, whether that's a dean or a principal or something like that, and let them determine who the appropriate individual or individuals might be to have that contact. They may have a better handle on it than we might be able to guess at. They very well might suggest whoever the faculty advisor is for the student newspaper, but they may have other ideas as well.
I think even if we don't use District 35 students because they're young, we could see if Catherine Wang could introduce us or put us in touch with the New Trier, with Paul Sally. I mean, we all know how to reach him, but that might just help, and then flow it down from there. You're right. I think that kind of communication might get us more excitement. I just want to see the other side of it to make sure we're prepared for it, what it is that we want to put out there for the students to do on our forum. Do we have that all figured out? Because, if we have all this excitement come in, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm a little old and I'm not going to be able to keep up with them. So, we better have our act together, figure out what it is that we really would like them to be engaged in. And like Anise had mentioned, they're not going to be able to sit through this. Even my high schoolers are so busy. I just cannot imagine them having, and 2 hours of their time in these meetings twice a month. So there are a lot of things that we should consider. But then again, we don't want to restrict it. Like Hillary said, it would be undemocratic. And by no way I was trying to be undemocratic, but I was trying to just see if, since we already had somebody who had expressed interest, maybe like a start, and maybe we can even talk to the school and say, hey, we only have 2 positions, or we have 1 position, and maybe they can do the screening for us and we don't even have to go that route, so there's many different ways. But I just want to make sure we as the forum are prepared before we start reaching out. Like, we've got all of our ducks lined up, we know what we're going to do, and how we can actually keep the excitement going with the young ones. That's all.
Yeah, and my suggestion would be that I would suggest 2, so they have each other, so that if they think it's really weird or they want to talk about it, or they, I think having a peer will make it a more approachable experience and give them also an opportunity to get to know one another, assuming they don't know one another. I think it'll make it a little less awkward for them than sitting with a bunch of us. I mean, we're all super cool, but
So in essence of time, I want to move forward because I know that we've taken up a lot of time on this particular piece, but what I wanted to do was see if we can talk in detail on what it is that we want to look at from a student participation perspective, what it would entail, how we would like to have them participate from, like making the most impact, and have that discussion. So let's, if you guys don't mind, we move that to our next meeting to talk in detail about that particular piece. And that would kind of tie into like some of the diversity on the forum as well, because we would be then, getting exposure to a lot of diversity.
So just to try to frame up as a finish, we not only like the age diversity that we get from getting some younger voices, but do we think they would need to represent some group as well, some other minority, so that they fill more than that one chair? Or do you think we're just wanting somebody who has the interest, passion, and ability to contribute, and regardless of the diversity of?
If I might offer a suggestion, if we create a student position or positions, that we maybe start there. And rather than require that a student be representative of a particular group, it very well may end up be the case that that student is. We all have many different dimensions of diversity. But rather than making that an eligibility criteria to serve on the forum, I would suggest that if we have a student position that's a dedicated student position, or a couple of dedicated student positions, maybe we start there and see where that takes us, rather than, again, having eligibility based on membership or identification with another group.
Okay.
Yeah, good
I
point.
think that's an excellent point. And also, before we get too far out over our skis, again, I had to point out that the ordinance that governs the body says there's 10 member slots, if I recall correctly. And so we need to coordinate with the board, and whatever the number of positions we think is the right number, including perhaps a couple of young persons slots, we ought to, get that all cleared and approved so that we're not making invitations that we can't actually make.
Yep. True.
Just a coordination.
Yep. No, very, very true. We don't want to get ahead of everything else.
Sorry.
I think we ought to, Sharon, let's make a point of making sure that this gets brought up. Maybe we have further thoughts about this before. I don't know what the timing is of the next board meeting versus this, but just to keep them aware, even though no decisions have been made, so that we keep it moving in the right direction.
That's a great point, Gary. And I would suggest that maybe the group spend some time thinking about this between our next couple of meetings, and that given that we're likely to have a pretty full agenda, and I don't mean to steal Dipty's thunder with talking about the next couple of meetings. The next meeting, we have a couple of guest presenters lined up. So to the extent that we want to try to keep the meetings a manageable time, and if this is going to dovetail in naturally with the ordinance, our goal is to have a draft ordinance for the forum to begin taking a look at the April 7th meeting. Maybe that's an appropriate time for us to regroup on this part of the conversation.
Yep, I think that's great, Sharon. And thank you for working on that ordinance. I'm just going to jump over there because we do have the change in ordinance coming, and every one of the forum members will have an opportunity to review it. Um, and so Sharon will provide more information as we get closer to that date. I just wanted to touch quickly on a training plan that we were. I know that we've received a couple of interest in asking for training. And I think we as a group need to talk through what type of training we're looking at, which means, are we looking at paid training? Are we looking at something for self-improvement? Are we looking at something that's going to benefit the forum as a whole? Is it going to benefit our community? Is it going to bring out some change in our community? Because we have very limited budget, and we have very limited time also. I don't think everyone wants to give up lots of weekends and stuff like that for training. So let's talk through that to figure out what, as a group, as a forum, what our needs would be for training, how many we want to have in a year. And, like at work, we have a very extensive training program, but it's all based on whether it's my individual needs, or it could be a totally different topic that doesn't relate to anything I do. Or is it going to help my team? Is it going to help my client? Is it going to help me bring in more business? It all depends on, that. So we're going to have to talk through some of that. And I think it would be a really nice thing. Sharon and I talked about it earlier. Really good idea to bring that together as a forum and then present it to the village board, and hopefully for next year, maybe also get some funding in terms of that specific training plan. I don't know, Sharon, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure, Dipti, thank you. I'm happy to. I think you summarized it quite well. Kind of the gist of my suggestion would be starting with training, and I think this could also apply to other initiatives and activities as well. We're gaining quite a bit of steam in terms of the work that we're doing, which is awesome. And to the extent that we'd like to consider having a budget request, it'll be important for us to think through prioritization, how any requests might connect to established goals of the forum and of the village board, and bring that to the village board for consideration as we get closer to our budget time. So rather than kind of a one-off approach to whether it's let's bring in a paid speaker or trainer, or let's register for this paid event or something, or let's put on this event, I would suggest that we begin to orient our thought process toward kind of a year-long plan that's prioritized. That'll take some time to develop, but I think that would help as we think about what the group's needs might be, and making sure that it's aligned with resources that are available to us.
All right, thank you for that. And then I know you spoke a little bit about our next meeting coming up for 3/17. We have Celia Buckman, and we're not confirmed with Ms. Rankin, but she is a part of St. Paul Church, and Reverend Gary is going to contact to see if she can bring a little piece of Glencoe history and speak about that at the same meeting. So we're not confirmed on that, but I just wanted to bring it up to the group here to let them know. And then I just, Anissa, I know you have an exercise, but I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to jump off. Reverend Gary has a very exciting thing to share with everyone. If you want to take a couple minutes, Reverend Gary, and share your exciting idea. And then do we want to do the activity, the communication exercise now? But I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be able to be part of it. Or do we do it I really do not want to keep pushing it. We keep pushing it and keep pushing it.
It's okay. I
feel
mean,
terrible
I think,
that every meeting we keep pushing it.
It's okay. I think we can just, table it until there's really time, and then we can do it. I don't, it doesn't have to be forced, and it doesn't have to be rushed, and I don't, it's okay.
I mean, if everyone wants to stay on for 10 more minutes,
No, it's okay.
welcome to do it.
It's okay.
And then Reverend Gary, you have like 30 seconds if you want to.
As soon as I unmute myself. So this was just the thought of something maybe the forum and the village board can also do is I do not want to call it a picnic. I do want to call it some type of community gathering in one of our parks where we can ask the various businesses to help with the food, the bouncy house, that type of thing. That the forum may present this to the community, that the community might come out together as one on one particular day. That was really the gist of it, the idea of it. We could probably get businesses because they would probably write it off. I can't say what they do, but they could probably write it off. We can do old time games, sack races, water balloons, that type of thing. And every hour, introducing a particular event, we can talk about, hey, this is the forum, this is what it's about. We have this beloved community pledge. Why don't you sign the pledge? Blah, 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 blah. So just the thought, since people are getting vaccinated, we might be able to get out, especially in the later part of July, August. Just a thought.
Sounds cool.
I'm going to
Like
pass
a
them,
community block party?
yeah, something fun like that. You guys can continue talking. I'm going to pass the meeting on to Maureen. She's going to finish up. She's the vice chair. So I'm sorry. I am. I do have to drop. If I really missed something terrible, please let me know. I will talk to you guys soon. Maureen, the floor is all yours. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, Denise, to your point, yep, like a block party.
Cool. I like.
Yeah, it's almost like the, the pumpkin day or something like that we do in that park. You're thinking, yeah, but with a little bit more of a topic to cover.
Right.
No, I think it's a great idea. It's going to be, when can we, I guess we're going to have to just wait till we sense that it's going to be comfortable
Correct.
to be doing that. But
Correct.
Could I add to that? Because I think it was Anise who brought this idea forth, and these may work well together. But we had talked about the students having some type of contest. I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe junior high. Anise, jump in anywhere. But where they would actually design a poster for the forum about us being a welcoming and inclusive community. And maybe at that event, we could announce the winner. And then all of the local businesses and houses of worship can hang that poster. So it's just one more way of people being able to see right away that we are a welcoming and inclusive community. So the two ideas might dovetail really well together.
I totally agree.
maybe even show others, right? Sorry. No, I'm sorry. Not only the winner, but letting some of the other contestants or whatever be seen too. But yeah,
Sure.
It seems like that does work nicely together.
I think too, I just am so excited. I can't wait. But to invite some of the organizations from the community that have talked to us with their concerns, like the people that made comments, make sure they know about it. And I'm particularly thinking about the Writers Theater people that have previously indicated they don't feel as comfortable in Glencoe as they wished they did. And, reach out to other groups that would, to welcome them.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. Wonderful.
As that takes shape, I can help with talking through some of just kind of the village's typical event planning logistics. I would echo Amy's point that we may need to be mindful of timing. The village board recently discussed kind of what might the summer look like in terms of special events? And part of that is thinking through the uncertainty that still exists. And so we don't know what scale of events may be feasible or comfortable. So whether this is a 2021 event or something else, whenever the time is appropriate, I'm happy to help engage with some of the village's normal event planning logistics and processes.
Karen, do you know if it's still on schedule for the farmer's market? Because even if we don't do the block party type of thing, we can still do the poster thing with the high schools and still do a presentation piece during the farmer's market or something like that.
That's a great point. I don't know if the farmer's market, I don't know what the farmer's market status is. I'm happy to find that out. The Chamber of Commerce actually sponsors the farmer's market, not the village. So I'm happy to try to get more information about that and share that with the group. But certainly, to your point, a poster contest could be done at any time. That could even lend itself to some sort of a virtual event, if that's still our environment, or some sort of smaller scale in-person event, depending what the world is like at that point in time.
Can I just share a quick announcement? Glencoe Union Church in St. Paul for years do a annual book reading. And I just learned that the author, Robert P. Jones, the author of White Too Long, The Legacy of White Supremacy in America Christianity, is going to tune in our book discussion next week, Wednesday at 7 p.m. As soon as I get the link, I would love to share it with the forum so you can also be a part of that. We just realized that the author will be joining us. So
That's very cool.
That is so cool. What did you say his name was?
his name is Robert P. Jones, and the name of the book is White Too Long, The Legacy of White Supremacy in America Christianity. It's going to be next Wednesday, March 10th at 7 p.m. As soon as I get the link from David Wood, I would share. Please tell me the correct way to share it, and I can share it with the group.
Certainly, if you want to send that to me, I'm happy to disseminate that out to the group.
Okay.
Is it a long book?
Yeah, it's about 320 some pages.
Today.
If we wasn't recording, I would say I wouldn't read the whole book because I don't think I'm gonna make it.
It's been my experience in any number of book clubs that numerous attendees will not have read the book. So, but I think it should be a fascinating discussion. I'd love to get that link.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so Sharon, I don't have an agenda, so you're gonna have to take it away, even though I'm
Sure.
supposed to be.
So we were on other business after we
Okay.
decided to defer the communications exercise to a later date. So that would bring us to adjournment if there is no other business before the forum this evening. So then if we do want to adjourn, we would just need a motion and a second, and then I'll conduct a roll call vote.
Well, before we get to that, let's just double check to see if there have been any other comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent parliamentarian reminder. There have been no additional public comments. Thank you.
Mhm. So I will now move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I will do a roll call vote. 1 second, get my list. I'm just going to go in the order that we're on the screen here. Member Gary Rubin,
Yes.
Member Margot Flanagan,
Yes.
Member Maureen Valvasori,
Yes.
Member Reverend Dwayne Gary,
Yes.
Member Amy Mizell,
Yes.
Member Bob Young,
Yes.
member Anise Moses,
Yes.
member Hillary Scott.
Yes.
Did I get everyone? Everybody jumped around on my screen view as you were talking. I didn't plan that very well. Okay, I think we got everybody. So then we stand adjourned. Thank you all and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
care.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.